Hello there, two mystics walking to a bar, Peter Boland and Maggie Whitehouse. Very glad to be with you again. And today we've decided to talk about one of the topics I think that every person who struggles with faith and struggles with mysticism and struggles with philosophy has probably asked at least once in their life. Why do some prayers work? And why do some people get answered prayers and other people don't?
Yeah. And that is a question that haunts everyone in and out of religion. The hardcore materialist skeptics who scoff
Mm.
at the very idea of asking some invisible God for something. And then folks who live a more experientially connected, uh, divinely oriented life who experience grace and abundance that comes just when it's most needed. And perhaps prayer plays a part in that, but how much? And those are all
Mhm.
rich, open questions. Where do
And
you
it's
land on all of this?
I don't know. I have lots of thoughts, but the only honest answer is I don't know.
Well,
But
that's our show for today, then.
yeah, but I do have experience of what doesn't work. And
Okay,
I always find that it's a really
let's
good
start
idea to
there.
have a look at what doesn't work, which gives you a clue at what might. But I wanted to ask this particularly because I'm now have some wonderful followers on Instagram and posting little videos there. And I
Yes.
told the story of after my late husband died, I ran away to Australia and I wasn't going to kill myself, but I had no interest in life. I was meeting friends. I ran away to meet some friends who were going around the world on a sabbatical. And I was very, very blessed that I could do that. Honestly, it
Mm.
was a miracle that I was able to do that at the time. Um, and they weren't allowed, they couldn't turn up because it's before the internet. They couldn't turn up the same day I was there. So I'm stuck in Cairns on my own. And I was really upset and bored and tired. And I went, it was my birthday. 6 weeks after Henry died. So I went out to snorkel on the barrier reef and encountered a 7 foot barracuda, which started heading towards me at great speed. And I lay in the water, and at that moment I thought, but I want to live. And the answer of how to deal with that barracuda came just like that. Nothing I could have thought about. So I swam forward as fast as I could, obeyed the voice, yelled my head off, and got as close to it as I am to this screen, and at that point it flipped away. And then it stayed in the water and just stared at me, and I stared at it, and I sort of went, "What do I do now?" And the voice just said, "Maggie, you can swim backwards." And I swam backwards and I got out and I was absolutely safe. And that very same barracuda had killed two other people. We were
Holy cow.
warned not to go in the deep water, and I'd ignored that warning. So why was I saved from having been careless? Whereas another person, well, the other two weren't, So it's such a huge question, isn't it?
Yeah. No, and there's this word, I know you know this word from psychology, apophenia, Apophenia. Apophenia means it's a term cooked up by a psychologist back in the 50s to call this phenomenon he was seeing something. And that
Mm.
phenomenon was, according to him, the brain's capacity to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things.
Hmm.
So it's pattern recognition driven by a need to understand, a need to navigate the somewhat chaotic and random nature of events. Seeing a cloud and going, "Oh, that looks like a dog." The cloud is not shaped like a dog. The brain is
Yes.
projecting onto this vaporous something that it loves and
Yeah.
enjoys and finds cute and adorable. So that always bedevils any attempt, it seems to me, to attribute divine intervention to a barracuda attack or not
Mm.
attack.
Yeah.
Who slips off a rocky path to their death and who doesn't,
Yeah.
and so on. It's just seems to me to be a risky business to put too much stake. Now, of course, remain open to
Mm.
to possibilities and all of that, but to attribute hard causation to what just might be correlation
Yeah.
from a sort of skeptical scientific perspective is what makes us mystics look bad.
Yeah. Yes.
You
Yes.
know, I saw a butterfly. It was my deceased loved one who came to visit me. That's lovely. And I would never argue with anyone who says
No.
things like that. And I hear it all the time.
Yes, and the
It's like,
and
oh,
the
that's
white feather
lovely.
that falls.
Uh-huh,
Yes.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
And it
and and
means something, so that's
right.
important.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. The experience is real. The feelings are real. The dynamics of that, the way it shifts you, all of that is real. Uh, but you know, my old skeptic self sort of wants to politely change the subject or just sort of absorb and celebrate with them this wonderful richness of this
Yeah.
moment. But you know, when you start thinking about prayer in that way as something, and your Barracuda story is not even a story about prayer. It's just a story about connection
Mm.
to
Something.
something higher than my own ability to figure my way out of this
Yeah,
mess.
exactly. That's what it
What,
was.
you know, I guess we use that old word intuition or whatever, but this is such a rich thing that seems foolish to deny it out of hand.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to land other than that.
Have you got some poetry?
I do. I have a Mary Oliver poem called Praying, since we're kind of thinking about prayer today. And this is a brief one. And this is just such, she is a treasure, of course.
Mm.
So this is called Praying by Mary Oliver. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention.
Mm.
Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak.
Mm.
Praying by Mary Oliver. And so
Yeah.
for her, prayer, you and I are called on, you way more than me, to offer invocations or prayers in public ceremonial settings. And I don't know how you roll, but I never memorize anything. When
No, I
somebody
don't.
turns to me around a dinner table and says, "Oh, Peter, you say grace," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, go."
Uh,
And I just love that idea of not trying to be eloquent and fancy
Mm.
and drawing on the library of catchphrases, but just going with, you know,
Whatever's
opening up
there.
and getting out of the way.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah. Yeah, well,
resonate
I
with
do
you?
that too. In desperate circumstances, I use what my ordaining bishop taught me, which is to go yum. But yeah,
Feeling it.
but
So,
something spontaneous is nearly always better. But I tell you one thing that I do know does not work with prayer,
yeah.
and that is holding on to the problem.
Oh, say more.
One of my one of the ministers I've worked with, Paul Seaton Byrne, lovely man who used to work in Devon, said he would watch people walk into his church, St. Michael's in Chadford, and they would go up to the altar rail, they would kneel down, they would pray, and you'd see them just flow what they wanted, and they'd have a moment, and then they'd get up, and he said they picked up the problem and walked away with it. And another way of putting that is to say we are just not really clear most of the time when we pray. And I'm quite sure that what you need to do is go, if possible, and then say, and then you walk away and leave it. But what we generally do, I mean, this is probably a silly example, but oh God, I need more money. I want to win the lottery. Oh God, can I win the lottery? I want to win the lottery, but how much do I want to win? Do I really want 15 million? I don't, if I get 15 million, I'm going to have to share it around the family. I'm going to have to give some to my mother, and I don't like my mother. And what are you going to do with the investment? I'm going to have to hire people, and what kind of, and my husband's going to want this kind of house, and I'm going to want to have that kind of house. How much money do I actually need? And you, before you know it, you've gone through, and your guardian angel, whoever carries that prayer to God, will
Falling
sort of,
asleep.
are they just sort of going, what the?
Yeah, I'm not an
What do
accountant.
you want?
What do you want? Yeah. You
So,
know, there's a famous apocryphal C.S. Lewis line that I wanted to use so very much in my book, and I Googled it and traced it down, and it was spoken by um, Anthony Hopkins, the actor who played C.S. Lewis in a film.
Yes, in Shadowlands, yes.
Yes, Shadowlands. And the line is something like, I'm paraphrasing from memory, the line is something like, prayer does not change God, prayer changes the one who prays.
Yes.
And it's a reworking of a Kierkegaard thing. He kind of
Yeah.
said something similar. And so that part of prayer really fascinates me
Yeah.
and warms me a little bit to C.S. Lewis, even though he didn't say it. But he must have said something similar. So
Yeah.
prayer is about transformation, your altar story. If pouring it out in a confessional way to one's understanding of God allows one to relinquish and release and let go of the problem and leave it there. That's huge.
Isn't
That's
it?
what's behind the whole Catholic confessional
Mhm.
ritual.
Yeah,
It's and you find that ritual in indigenous cultures as well.
you do.
You know, the vomit eater who just takes away your bile, and what an enormous social service that is. I don't have to carry this rage, this guilt, this shame anymore. A little thing about the past, huh? You can never change it. I'm full of nuggets like that, folks. Stick around. And and yet maybe that's why we love to live there so much because we can just keep flogging ourselves. If I think about who I am now, that's much more challenging because now I have to make some choices. But
Yeah,
the past is just there, festering, and so if prayer means the ability to relinquish and let go, that's transformative.
it is. I would like to return to C.S. Lewis for a minute or two
Yeah,
because there is a saying from Aslan in the Narnia books, which
yeah,
sounds quite harsh, but also has a great profound truth to it, which is nobody is told anybody's story but their own.
that doesn't sound harsh to me.
Yeah. But you do get told your story. I mean, I prayed when my first husband was dying. We were married for 1 year and he was given a terminal diagnosis 5 months after our wedding. I prayed, Peter. My God, I prayed. I prayed, I prayed, I prayed, I prayed. And I would go to Evensong at the local church. And the vicar would sit with me. Obviously, nobody else ever went. It was just him and me, and we'd say the service together. And I sat and told him, and I prayed, and I trusted that my prayer would be answered. And he said, sometimes the answer to your prayer is no.
Yeah,
And sometimes the answer to the prayer that is no at one point in your life becomes a blessing. And that was very hard to hear. But it's more than 30 years ago now. And although I would never say I'm glad he died, my life, because of his death, was utterly, utterly transformed.
yeah, yeah,
Because on his deathbed, I was told he was going to hell because he was an atheist by a hospital chaplain. And that literally woke me up. So my prayer from there became, is that true? Is this man I love going to hell? And
yeah,
all my armchair Christianity,
yeah,
no, thank you very much.
yeah.
And I had to go up the
Mm,
aisle after his coffin, hearing, I am the resurrection and the life. Nobody, and I was just torn apart. So in a way, that cruelty was an
yeah,
ultimate blessing. Now, I'm not going to say to everybody who's suffering that there's going to be a blessing coming, but there can sometimes be something in there that is awful at the time, but later on you're going to say, I'm glad for who I became.
that's it. Suffering can be a cleansing fire. Now, that's a message appropriate to a certain time and a certain process.
Mm.
The last thing we want to do is slip into spiritual bypassing and couching all suffering as good for our growth and all
Yeah,
that. But this is simply factually accurate. We've all experienced something like you just shared, that a loss, a sudden change in direction, not getting that job, not getting to move to that town, you know,
yeah,
you think your life is over when these terrible things happen, but in retrospect, that was a pivot into a new direction that you didn't see coming, a road upon which so many blessings and so much abundance has come to you that you almost start to think, well, you know, thank God that other thing happened, which isn't quite it at
It
all.
isn't quite it. No.
And yet it is this sort of rich acknowledgement that as one sort of muddles through one's life, looking
Mm.
ahead, it's all sort of chaotic and random. But looking back, I think Schopenhauer said something like this. Looking back at now at these advanced ages, uh, there seems to be a strange pattern as if somebody was organizing it.
Yeah.
I don't quite buy that either, that God is a marionette puppet and pulling all the strings, but which to me gets to this question when we're thinking about why are some prayers answered and others not, that, who or what are we praying to? That matters as well in one's own personal theology or God concept. If is God a dispenser of favors who is generally indifferent to our needs until we ask for something? That seems odd to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I gravitate in my own mysterious walk through all of this toward a God concept that is not quite like that, but not a cosmic dispenser
Mm.
waiting for your request, but instead, prayer is really not petitionary for me. It is participatory.
Mm.
When I pray corporately in my church service with my Episcopal friends, or here at home, Lori and I have a prayer ritual we do every morning, based on a lot of language I pulled out of Julian of Norwich. There is, with an Episcopal rosary, and it's just lovely. It's to take time out of the busyness and the doing,
Mm.
doing, doing, to just say, for these 10 minutes, we're going to step out of that and we're going to sanctify this time.
Yeah.
And it's just, you fall in love with those pockets and you need them.
Yeah.
And they're like prayer beads on your day.
Yeah.
And you need to get to that moment, whether it's a dawn prayer, a bedtime prayer.
Mm.
For me, and I didn't grow up in a praying tradition, but I've come to really, really revel in that. And I guess it came out of my immersion in more Hindu and Buddhist traditions in my earlier life, where the mandala and the chant and the silence were just essential
Yeah.
to sanity.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted to find in the theistic Abrahamic faith that many of those same dynamics, the words shift around, but
Yeah.
it's nourishing to me.
Yeah.
Not petitionary prayer. I don't spend a lot of time asking God for things. I thank God for
Yeah.
things, and I
Yeah.
don't even know who I'm talking to exactly, but that Abraham Joshua Heschel line comes to mind, that my favorite rabbi, that I never ask God for money or fame or power, but I ask God for awe, and he gave it to me.
Yeah.
I just want to be in awe and I
Yeah.
want to feel gratitude. And those are things I can practice.
Yeah. And also that's a place to come home to. Matthew Fox, whom I've worked with, terrifying man, but amazing theology.
Oh,
Uh,
we have to do a show on him coming up.
Oh,
I'd love to hear more about that.
but he talks about these four paths that we need to walk, which is the via positiva, the via negativa, the via creativa, via transformativa, which is just posh way of saying positive, negative, creative, and transformative. But he says you have to start with awe. If
Yeah,
you don't start with awe, if you don't start with joy, you've got nowhere to come home to when the times get bad. And I think
yeah.
that's so powerful. And I like you, I start my day with prayer. And in fact, I would say that every thought I have and every word I say, I know is prayer,
Hmm.
good prayer or
Sure.
bad prayer, because I really believe in this concept of the ultimate name of the Holy One being I am that I am the transcendent, I am the immanent. That's the what I would call the Christ consciousness in me, the best I can be in relationship. And I'd go so far as to say that I think prayer is a muscle.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I've learned I was very, very ill for a few years some time back.
Mhm.
And I learned then prayer was just gratitude for a moment without pain. Prayer was
Mm.
gratitude for being able to watch the birds on the bird feeder. Prayer was gratitude for being able to get to the bird feeder and fill it, which was almost impossible for a while,
Wow.
and that that illness did transform me because I realized afterwards that every moment has its moment of sanctity. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever let go of that.
Yeah.
And it's also about coming back to the what am I praying for unconsciously by being
Mhm.
cross about things? Not that I don't not that I stop being cross about things or exasperated or anything, but
Right. This isn't about
what am I
walking
praying
around,
for here?
yeah, pious and perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a bad thought, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
No.
a lot of bad thoughts. But how much evidence, how much do I want to give to them? And I also learnt this when I was ill because one of the treatments I had was cannabis oil. And
Yeah.
some people have lovely trips on cannabis oil, and it just brought up my demons. And that was what I
Oh,
needed for the healing.
oh,
It
oh.
was showing me how much darkness was locked into my psyche, how much anger and hate and fear. And I had to get to the point where I was saying, Dear God, help me through this. I don't know how to deal with this because every night the lights would go out and the demons would come.
No.
And I was saying, help me, help me, help me. That was a prayer of petition. And what I got simply was,
Yeah.
every one of these is yours. These are all yours. They're coming up to be let go. So look at them and love them.
Yeah. To meet everything with that infinite, significant presence.
Yeah,
Um, in that way, every step and every word is a prayer, and every gesture a prayer.
yeah,
And so we're always praying in that sense. The prayer to me is an invitation to enter the present moment, to be in this presence that normal thinking cuts out,
yeah,
because I'm always thinking about what's next or what I forgot to do and so on. So prayer is to come into this presence and be silent, and to silent the mind from its incessant chattering demand. So
yeah,
that's why prayer for me has little to do with satiating my needs or solving my problems and all that. I find that my problems have a weird way of kind of working themselves out more gracefully if I stop meddling
yeah,
and I just do the next indicated thing
yeah,
in a spirit of calm and even humor and laughter. And um,
yeah.
that that works for me. I ran across a quote from Meister Eckhart as I was thinking about our talk today. If I could share this, a couple of
Mm,
sentences. So Meister Eckhart, right, this 13th, 14th century Catholic priest, mystic, very famous mystic. Um, he had this to say. He says, "Some people want to see God with their eyes as they see a cow, and to love him as they love a cow for the milk and the cheese and the profit it brings them. This is how it is with people who love God for the sake of outward wealth or inward comfort. They do not rightly love God when they love him for their own advantage."
yeah,
Oh, wow, that's a reframing again of something. As a parish priest who,
yeah,
with a lot of great sermons under his belt, must have experienced from his parishioners again and again and again, who, weren't academic theologians, who were just poor people who were really struggling and suffering and needed things. They
yeah,
could have used some milk and some cheese,
yeah,
but he's inviting us to kind of, okay, sure, as Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, God will see to our fundamental needs as he sees to the birds and so on.
mm,
So, that box has kind of been checked maybe.
yeah. But
And now it's time to think a little bit differently, not of, again, God as a dispenser of commodities and comfort, but someone who carries us over every hurdle that we are meant to cross through our own strength and wit and so on.
yeah,
That opened it up for me in a kind of a different way.
yeah. And what do we say to the people with crippling diseases that nobody can cure, that pray? What do we say to them? What? I do believe that there is a lot of dis-ease, lack of ease in the modern
Yeah.
world, that it goes through to our bodies.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm sure that there is an awful lot of unraveling that is necessary within. There was a lot of unraveling necessary in my sickness.
Mm.
But, and I also believe, this may sound really wanky bollocks, pardon my French, but I do believe that there are souls who take on the pain of the world.
That's how it looks, isn't it?
Yeah. And I have
Yes.
a dear friend, John Wadlow. And if you're listening to this and you've got something like fibromyalgia or ME, get in
Mm.
touch with me and I'll put you in touch with John Wadlow because he has a 75% success rate in removing the emotional baggage that has
Beautiful.
contributed
Yeah.
to that pain. He can't guarantee that he gets somebody out of pain or out of tiredness, but he can certainly alleviate it because whatever is going on in all of us is always added to by our emotional loading.
Doubt. No
And if
doubt.
you think about, I had a blood cancer in the lymph, actually a lymphatic cancer. And if you think about the lymph, it's the part that protects you. I had
Yeah.
never felt protected in my life. My
Hmm.
parents were unable to protect me. I wasn't protected at school. I wasn't protected. And I went through a pattern of believing I am not protected, I am not protected, I am not protected.
Well, you
And
were
in the end,
not.
my
Right.
body obeyed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So, in a way, I was doing that prayer because I didn't
Yes.
realize. So please don't think for 1 minute that I'm telling you that if you've got fibromyalgia, it's your fault. It is not your fault. You are carrying
Right, 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 right,
the
right.
environmental toxins, you're carrying
Yeah.
genetic toxins, you're carrying your parental ones, your school ones. Your health is not necessarily terribly good anyway, because many of us, as we get older, our health isn't that good. Uh, but I just feel so much for these people who come and when I can send them to John and they come home and they actually will ring me up a week later and say, oh, I feel better. And
Yeah.
then you have to say to them, don't reinfect because they're
Yeah.
nearly all overgivers.
Mm.
It's
It's so rich.
yeah,
It's a part of the mystical life, the contemplative life that we think about a lot here on this program is to live in the both and, to live in the paradox
yeah,
that we can simultaneously experience divinity as the oneness of all energy, matter, and consciousness.
yes,
And so, what do we need gods for? But at the same time, to feel such rich nourishment from a devotional relationship to a
yeah,
guru, to a goddess, to Gaia, to Mother Mary, to Jesus, and all the rest.
mm,
And to not have to say, well, it's one or the other is is where the vibrant aliveness is,
yeah,
and to allow that paradox to remain unresolved.
yeah. Oh, but that's
And
the
that
whole secret, isn't it? That's
it's
the
I'm
road, the
discovering that.
role of the prophet. Hold the secret. A friend of mine, a Baptist minister in London, has just written his first novel. It's a detective novel with a vicar in it, as they always seem to be nowadays. But all the way through, the female vicar, who's his heroine, is holding paradox all the time. And she's actually
Mm,
saying, "Why did my momentary prayer that I really need a taxi result in a taxi, but my prayer to save the life of somebody just wasn't answered?" And it's a really good novel. It's called In the Name of Simon
nice.
Woodman. But it's just that's the thing. You've got to hold that tension. That is
Yeah.
the role of the prophet to say, I I don't know. I know what's good, I know what's bad, I think, but the thing in the middle, I've just got to hold it and I've got to trust it works itself out.
Yeah. Now, the dangerous business of attributing causation is so difficult. There's a whole
Yeah.
new re-emergence of the ivermectin COVID vaccine debate here
Oh
in the
yeah, with Dr.
US
Fauci,
because
yeah,
Dr. Fauci being grilled
Fauci's
by
good.
some folks in the Senate. And I saw a meme, of Jesus, uh, his face from some ripped from some old painting, and above it said, um, some anti-vaccine kind of
Yeah,
sentiment about, God will sort it all out. And then uh a thought bubble coming out of Jesus's mouth saying, "I sent you scientists."
Yes.
So it's a
Yeah.
variation on an old joke. The
Yeah.
woman in the Texas flood sitting on her roof,
Yeah.
dying and going to heaven, and God's like, "I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter." She
Yeah.
turned them all down. God will save me. So
Yes.
so so that's what, for skeptics and folks outside of religion, which is where I come from, where I grew up anyway. That is undergoing a transformation because I'm being sort of a non-dualist in my basic orientation. Why do I go to an Episcopal church every Sunday and sit in a cathedral and recite the Nicene Creed and take communion? Um, I have trouble explaining that to
Yeah.
myself and to anyone else, but I just feel something in that 90 minutes that I don't feel many other places.
No.
And there's a kind of wink, wink, nod among a lot of the folks in there, who are Buddhists and agnostics, and we drink it in, whatever it is,
Yes.
and are nourished by it and fed by it, and enriched by it and
Yeah.
calmed by it, and you just want more. And so that's that dichotomy again that uh, I think a
You're
lot of
building the
people are
muscle.
in that.
You're
Yeah.
doing the workout. You're going to the gym on Sunday.
If
But
prayer is a
it's prayer
right,
gym.
it
And I,
is a muscle. Yes.
yeah, I will sound very arrogant when I say this, but generally, if somebody asks me to pray for them, that prayer will have an effect for two reasons. One, I've got a strong prayer muscle, but the
Yeah.
other is I'm detached from the outcome,
There you go.
or hopefully relatively detached from the output. I will feel
Yes.
compassion for that person, but
Of
the
course.
prayer will actually be, can this be changed?
Yeah. Prayer isn't about exerting control.
Yeah.
It's
It's just
about
about
opening
lifting
channels.
something. Yeah.
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 No, exactly that. To work without attachment to the fruits of work, as Krishna says in the Gita, to plant those seeds, not knowing if a perfect crop is going to come up four
Yeah.
months from
And
now.
it won't necessarily be the crop you want. The an answered good prayer is quite often you go, what? And I've been married three times. The current Mister is
Yes.
the keeper, who's lovely, 25 years so far and counting. But number two was
Beautiful.
ended in divorce, and the marriage was getting into difficulties. He
Mm.
was a bolter. He'd done it twice before, but and I love that phrase, the bolter. But
Ultimate.
he was away in America, and the emails were coming in, and I was thinking, oh, something's up here, and we knew it. We were in some trouble, and I went to Silent Unity, which is the prayer
Yes.
group in Kansas who pray for you 24/7 for 30 days,
I'm
positive
aware.
prayer, and
Yeah.
they are amazing. I must remember to put the link in. Please go to them if you need any help. They're extraordinary. And I wrote out this prayer, and I said, please, may there be divine order in my marriage. When we got
Yeah.
married, we gave our marriage to God. We went up to the high altar and we said, we give this to you. This partnership is yours. So I said, please pray for divine order in my marriage. I gave the marriage to God. It's up to God what happens now. 2 days later, he left me. So I couldn't even be mad.
Prayer answered.
And he did say
Right.
the most annoying thing, which was, I don't know what she's on about, when I was complaining one day to a friend, and he said one day she should thank me for leaving her. She'll be much better without me. And the annoying thing,
Um,
he was right. So yes, Jonathan, if you're watching this, and I doubt you are, you were right.
right.
But it
Oh, well,
has taken me 25 years to be able to get to say
as long
that.
as we've settled that, got that sorted. Who was right?
But that was a prayer that was not answered, but was answered, which was,
Right.
this is your highest good. But you can't tell that to the parents of the children in the bomb school in Iran. You can't tell that to the people in Gaza.
No, that's not the
What do
time.
you say?
No,
I tend to say this is humanity's fault and we've been given free
that's right.
will. And
Yeah.
I'll quote Mr. Rogers and say, look for the helpers. But that doesn't, I can't change that.
No.
And no
There are
prayer
no
is
right
going to do that.
words in those moments. And a friend of mine is a chaplain who volunteers at a oncology ward at a children's hospital here in town. And I asked her, how do you do it? How do you walk into a room where young parents
Yeah.
are around the bedside of their 8-year-old daughter dying from leukemia.
Yeah. While
And she
other
said,
children are recovering.
right, right.
Yeah.
And she said, Peter, I just sit on the floor with them and
Weep.
with our backs against the wall, and I just sit and cry
Yeah.
with them. And there's no magic words. The
No.
less said, the better in those moments. It comes back to presence, that this stranger who does not have to be here is in this room, brings love into the room. Love, capital L, not personal love, but just the presence of okayness, the presence of cosmic grandeur, and the problems of this little family are not the only thing of significance
Mm.
in the universe. It doesn't shrink you down, it somehow expands you
Yeah.
to a place where it does matter. Your daughter matters. We matter. This suffering is real, but the chaplain is not in the repair business,
Mm.
at least not in the usual sense of that word. Like, you're here to bring my daughter back to life.
Mm.
Something else is raining down, and prayer or prayer facilitators can facilitate in kind of opening that ceiling so that this cosmic connection starts to come front of mind. It's always in back of mind in all of us, but the facilitator, I think, brings it to the front of mind. So the healer isn't the one healing. The healing is opening up everyone else so
Yeah.
the healing can come up through them.
Yeah.
And to me,
I
that's how real prayer
yeah. I
works.
did talk about my prayer. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just opening a channel. I have to point that out. I have never healed anybody in my life or anything. I just can
Right.
sometimes open a bit of a channel that's detached. But there's one other thing too, which is I this doesn't count for torture and cruelty, but the thing is, I don't think God sees death as wrong.
Right. That's a taboo thing to say. I'm glad you said it. Um, there are worse things than death.
Well, yeah, I mean, some people are afraid of hell, of course. Not that I'm a believer in hell, but
Yeah.
there has to be in this great, extraordinary universe of ours, which more than 90% is dark matter or dark energy, which is probably where spirit lives, whatever spirit is, and we know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It keeps on, it just keeps transforming. So there must be existence before and after. I mean, Origen, the early church father, was excommunicated for saying there is you exist before your birth. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that we do exist before our birth and after our birth. It's just that we're in this limited time frame,
Yeah.
and we don't know what's afterwards. There are quite a few books of people who've been in not just near death situations. There was one by a man, I've forgotten his name now, I'll try and remember it and put it in the link, who was brain dead from meningitis. And his family were debating when to turn him off. And he actually had this extraordinary experience in which he came back and remembered. And he woke up, which was technically impossible because he was brain dead.
Yeah.
And there's enough evidence that there is something afterwards. Um,
Yeah. Whatever form we take before we're born and after we die is unquantifiable and
yeah.
indefinable, but it's probably not Peter Boland.
No, it's not Maggie
Exactly.
Whitehouse. No.
It's not a personal maybe thing, but wow. Well, this is we opened up a big can
We
today.
have. Oh, just one final thing, which
Sure,
was, oh,
please.
I've forgotten it.
Oh,
Oh, yes, it doesn't take away the grief of the people when you lose a
mhm.
person, having been there, to say, death's actually okay could sound really callous. It isn't. The grieving process is horrendous. And
No.
we don't grieve well. We hide death. We
Right.
stick death in a cabinet. Hospices for children, the Birmingham Acorns Hospice has a special cold room where a child can lie for several days while the parents, cut their hair,
Yeah.
tie their hair up,
Touch their
change their
base.
clothing,
Sure.
be with them, that kind of thing, which is helpful. But in ancient times, and certainly the Jewish sitting shiva, you would be the whole family community would be there, and they would get into that grief.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas 2 weeks after Henry died, I had supper with an old friend, and I started to cry, and he said, "Don't cry."
It's time to move
He didn't mean
on.
it nastily at all,
Yeah.
but it was all,
Yeah.
come on, be the strong girl, be the strong
Uh-huh.
woman. And no, we need oh yes, the final thing I really wanted to say is I think the lesson of the cross is the divine trying to tell us that it knows about pain.
Yes.
It's experienced the worst possible death and
Yeah.
taken on a physical form to experience that, experience betrayal, because we will all be betrayed in this life. To
Yeah.
experience being accused of being a liar, to be experience everything you've ever done to be good, to be denigrated, and to be murdered.
Mm. This
And
is,
if God knows that, then I do know from experience that God is there with us in the
yeah.
suffering, or something is.
Yeah. No, this is, I first heard that particular take on Christ's death on the cross back in college, reading St. Anselm,
Mm.
and who takes that view in opposition to the more mainstream claim that Christ died for our sins and that,
Yeah.
the substitutionary atonement
Mm.
business, that his death on the cross pays a ransom like a scapegoat in
That
Leviticus.
wasn't Anselm, actually, I think. Anyway, tell me the
I
story.
may be I may
Yeah,
be
yeah,
crossing some wires here, but my recollection at
yeah.
this moment is that he offers an alternative that no, Christ's death on the cross doesn't cure us of our original sin. Its central purpose is, as you were just describing,
Ah, yeah,
is that it demonstrates for us God's absolute compassion and unity with humanity, to be willing to become human and then to be tortured and slaughtered in
yeah.
such a horrific way after a hard, short life. Demonstrate so when we appear, so when we gaze upon the crucifix, we um, we know viscerally and intellectually that God is in our suffering because He chose to enter into it,
Mm.
and that is a wordless demonstration of God's infinite
Yeah.
compassion. I thought it was an interesting take after
Yeah, it is.
having,
That's very
been
good.
beaten
Yeah.
over the head my whole life that if you don't accept Jesus Christ, you're going to hell. So this was a different kind of take. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm very with
this is
that
what,
take. I mean,
yeah.
it's difficult to say to somebody who is suffering right now or bereaved that God is there with them, but it is about just allowing yourself to go down. There was one time after Henry's death, I used to light a candle for him every night when I had a bath. I'd light a candle and I'd stay in the bath until the candle burnt down. And I'd also have a gin and tonic. And one day I was just weeping in the bath, weeping and weeping and weeping. And I thought, I'm going all the way down here. I'm going to take this all the way down. And I don't know what came into my head to do that, but instead of trying to comfort myself and come up, I went down and down and down. And I understand that that's a terrible thing for some people to even contemplate if they're feeling suicidal. But I was
Hmm.
really blessed in that when I went down to the bottom, and there was almost like this floor,
Yeah.
and it was filled with starlight.
Yeah. No bottom.
There was no bottom. It was, but actually, it was starlight. It was the universe. It was
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful for me. But if I hadn't had the bravery or the drunkenness to go that deep, I wasn't drunk on one gin and tonic, but you know what I mean. I would
Yeah.
never have known that. So it was a huge gift for me to be able to grieve that deeply, to be able to find at the bottom there was love.
Right. We are falling up in a way. There's an
Yeah,
old Buddhist saying, the bad news is you're falling. The good news is there's no bottom.
yeah,
So it just reminds me of that
yeah,
vision that you're describing. It's beautiful.
yeah. And also,
Shall,
finally, we are the answer to the prayer of anybody else.
and that's a complicated
Yeah,
sentence too, isn't it?
it
Because
is.
to some folks that sounds like we're pushing God out and we're gonna pull ourselves up and take care of everything. That's not
But he
it, is
sent
it?
us.
Yeah.
He sent
He
us. He
sent
sent
us.
us to sign that petition. He sent us to
Yeah,
say no to that data center. He sent
yeah,
us to put our hand out to a
that's
suffering
right.
child or animal.
Yeah. Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah,
And that's where we have our being.
yeah. I actually know a guy who bought a truck and drove to Ukraine to rescue animals from
Yeah,
people who'd been killed. He did it for a year. He wore him out, but my admiration for him because God sent him.
unbelievable.
God can't stop the bombs because God
Right.
gave us free will, but
Yeah, yeah.
but look for the helpers.
Well, we journeyed a crooked, lovely path today
Yeah.
in our inquiry into why are only some prayers answered.
And we haven't
Should
come
I
up with an
close?
answer, which it would
Yeah.
have been impossible. But if
Should I
any of
wrap?
it has helped, I
Yes.
hope. I hope.
Oh, it's helped me. Should I wrap with
Yes,
another
please.
Mary Oliver? Good.
Please.
All right. This is another poem I just adore and I've used many times in many ways. And it addresses prayer specifically. So it's called The Summer Day. So on this lovely summer day, The Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and to be blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary
I
Oliver,
love
The
that
Summer
prayer.
Day.
And that quotation at the end is used so often, but it's really important, isn't it?
Yes.
Really is.
Yeah.
And also, this is going to sound really silly, but I think there's focus in that prayer is so beautiful about the envelopment of the joy and everything. And yet my little brain went, should you feed a grasshopper sugar? And that is what blocks prayer. Do you know what
That
I
is what
mean?
rots prayer. Is that what you said?
That blocks prayer. That
Blocks.
because I had
Yes.
to say, no, I don't mind one way or the other. It's none of my business. That is a prayer. But can you see how the brain will come in and go, no, that's
Oh
not quite
my
right. That's
goodness.
not quite right.
Only
So
going to
that's
live
not.
for 2 weeks more anyway. I know.
Yes, no, that's beautiful. I love that prayer. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Maggie.
Peter.
Always a pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye bye. We'll see you soon.